as we always like to do, and look at what the top 25 might look like. It's also a great chance for us to hit some of the notable results from within teams inside the top 25 poll. And what in the world is wrong with Missouri?
They're just not that good.
I've got them dropping at least one spot just based on aesthetics. And we can talk about like whether they should or not, but I'm much more interested in why this Missouri team, which has played with its food, had slow starts, now finds itself in overtime against Vanderbilt. I was like late to this game, so I didn't see like how it started to get there. But I mean, what?
I was tracking it most of the day because it was close early and like Vandy was leading. I was just like, uh-oh, we got something going here. Just because like last week, Mizzou was, I mean, Boston College scored late to make it closer than it was, but they still were not putting Boston College away. And today they were not putting Vanderbilt away. In fact, Vanderbilt was hanging on the entire time and forcing overtime. And it was a missed field goal in the second one that cost them the game. So they just, I don't know. Like it feels like they're stuck in the mud. Like they never really seem to hit their top gear, even when they're trying. Like I thought early in the season when they were playing like super easy games, I just thought they were just kind of playing in neutral because they didn't have to really do anything. And some of that was the case because a lot of guys were sitting. But these last 2 weeks, they just don't have like the top gear that I expected them to have.
I agree with that. They look slower. Not like foot speed slow, but just the tempo of the offense. And I haven't compared like what their tempo is this year to what it was last year. But like last year, I felt like it was more of an attacking mentality, and just like they would get up and go more often. And now I feel like it's more of a slog, I guess. They also, I mean, they bogged down in the red zone and in kind of like the scoring area quite a bit this year, but especially in this game. I mean, if you look at this, Vanderbilt did a nice job of not allowing like the crazy explosive big plays from Missouri as much as they could have, right? So you give up a 64, give up a 32 in the run game. All right. In the pass game, 25, 27, 20, 18, 19, like they're not taking the top off the defense. And ultimately, you'll probably have to settle for some field goals when teams do that to you. And they missed 3 field goals today. So this thing probably doesn't go to overtime if they can kick some field goals. But do they look when you watch them? Because I watched maybe the last 20 minutes of this. They don't look like they have a lot of difference makers compared to the athletes Vanderbilt is throwing out there. And Vandy does look improved this year for sure.
Yes.
But you see what I'm saying? I don't know. To me, it doesn't look crazy.
Vandy is 1,000% more athletic this year.
Yeah.
But the way Mizzou has kind of recruited and the way you expected them to look, they're startlingly similar to Vanderbilt. In fact, I mean, should I unleash my fun new nickname for the Tigers that I shared in the group chat?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
a little problematic, so we need to put on a warning. You know,
if your kids are in the room,
your kids are in the room,
get them
watch
out.
Yeah,
more like mid-zoo. Boom.
Damn. I think Baylor just fumbled through the end zone to lose the game.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, yeah. Now, if that is true, Dave Aranda is fired. Yeah.
Bad football teams doing things bad football teams do, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sure they'll review this. It'll take forever. All right, so let's keep talking Mizzou while they review it.
Mid-zoo.
They are going to continue to stack wins, and they are going to continue to ride the momentum of last year's big win count. And I don't know what it's going to take other than outright losses for them to start tumbling in the rankings.
I mean they got the bye next week, then they're at Texas A&M.
I mean, buddy,
I don't know. It's
Texas A&M was in a I can't even.
Where would Bowling Green rank in the SEC? They've played Penn State tough. They've played it like Bowling Green might just be good.
A lot of teams in the SEC are happy they won't find out. But after they've played 4 home games and now they've got 5 road games out of their next 7. And if they play as kind of like half-assed as they did the last couple weeks, I mean, they're not going to lose at UMass, but they might lose to A&M. They'll probably definitely lose to Alabama, and they might get caught by South Carolina. Mississippi State, probably not, especially now that Chapin's done. But
yeah, but look at what we just said: Texas A&M, South Carolina, Mississippi State.
yeah,
So they'll lose to Alabama, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, whatever, that was Alabama. But like I just see this team being 7-1, you know, like with a really good record in the significant portion where stakes seem really high. And the thing that's funny is I'm not gonna sell my stock on them because I know this is crazy. College football teams can improve. You know, especially when when we're talking about things like the slog, and it's like it doesn't look like things are as crisp as they were. I love what you said about attacking mentality, because sometimes I think about that when I'm looking at offenses where I almost feel relatable. Like you just have those days when just like everything is on time, everything is just running exactly the way that you set it up, and you're just like finishing your assignments and you're hitting your errands and you're hitting your green lights and you're like, yes, this is a good day. And then there's days where it doesn't happen. And I totally agree that Missouri just has not looked in sync at all. And most of my book on that, and again, I didn't see the beginning of this game, but most of my book on that has been, and one of the reasons why on CBS Sports HQ early in the week, I did Vandy plus 11.5 first half. I was like, Missouri's gotten off to slow starts. Takes them a while to get the engine revved up. You know, whatever. Let's take the doors. Diego Pavia can give them some trouble the way Thomas Castellanos did. Yada, 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 whatever. But like, I still could imagine Missouri figuring it out. Eli Drinkwitz and Missouri are incredibly lucky that the schedule sets up such that they probably can wait until the engine gets revved up. The question is whether it's going to be too late by the time they actually find it.
Well, I think they're going to be a real interesting, we're going to have to just do like the, hey, they're SEC but thing if they go 10-2.
Oh, like a playoff conversation?
For the playoff argument, yeah. I mean, I don't want to do a whole lot of playoff stuff in September, but
I have zero interest in playoff stuff in September.
A&M, UMass, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas. I mean, how many bowl teams do you think are on that?
Hey, I know this is like not something we do on this podcast at all, but if I am to give any, I'm not even going to say credit to the committee, but like one thing that the committee has done consistently is it does seem like when it comes to splitting the tiebreakers, they want to see how many cards you can put on the table. And the cards are wins against other teams that they like. And if Missouri is short on cards to put on the table in those tiebreaker scenarios, I would hope that if that's the situation, a team with more wins that would be deserving would have the opportunity to get in there.
Like, if Michigan goes 9-3, I would take them over a 10-2 Missouri with this schedule.
I don't know. It's too hard to say. I mean, like
think about who else is on that schedule.
Let me see it.
All right, fair enough.
It's September 21st. I got just like two spots, you know, like I think that you're going to be looking at, I already closed that tab, but I think you're going to be looking at Miami putting a 50 burger on USF.
Yep.
Style points there. They're probably going to jump ahead of Missouri. I think they could drop even one more spot beyond that, but I don't think they're falling out of the top 10. They still won. So, I mean, this is Vanderbilt that beat Virginia Tech. But Virginia Tech lost at home to Rutgers.
Yeah. The Rutger knot.
Kansas State just turned it over again, by the way. So
they got the dropsies.
Is it 3-0 still?
No, it's 10-6 BYU.
10-6 BYU, and Johnson just threw an interception.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Provo at night, man.
It's tough.
It's still a lot of time, right?
Weird things happen. Yeah, it's not even halftime yet, but
yeah,
not looking great for the Wild Kitties.
We'll see. A lot of time there. All right. Elsewhere in top 25 action, let's.
Texas cruised, Ohio State cruised, Ole Miss cruised. Miami cruise.
No. I think we need to have a house meeting, y'all.
Uh-oh.
I mean, should we not talk about Utah for like a week and a half as punishment for this nonsense? I'm so sick of this.
What are the dude? The defensive effort they put up today though was
Amazing,
incredible.
And you were right to point out, like, we got a whiff that like Utah's defense was not vintage, and Utah's defense was vintage today.
We had two data points. They absolutely blanked Baylor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, like against Utah State, they were actually not that great, right? And today they went back to being amazing. I was, because they needed, it wasn't like their offense was going to score a whole lot of points. Like they needed all of that defense today, and that was, I don't know. If you sat Kyle Whittingham down and you said, where does this rank in sort of like your all-time defensive performances? To go on the road in what is possibly your toughest Big 12 game without Cam Rising and get the dub. I mean, hold Oklahoma State under 300 yards of offense, I mean, pretty well under, until like Oak State's last two drives were 58 and 69. So, I mean, you're like under 200 yards of offense for the majority of the day.
It was 22. It was 22-3 with 6 minutes left in this ball game. Like I know that we got some real lipstick on a pig situation with what this final score is.
Yeah.
I was just speaking about, I'm tired of doing the Cam Rising Fingy situation. Like, I mean, he's going to play. He's not going to play. Sources say this. Sources say that. He's expected to give it a go. Oh, he's not going to give it a go. Oh, this one website's going to say this. Oh, this one thing's going to do that. I mean, I'm
telling you, he's dead. That was an actor on the sidelines.
Oh, that's a really good theory.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in the tailgate just
the truth.
Somebody in the tailgate suggested take his eligibility and just call it a day. Which honestly,
speaking of eligibility, I mean, Utah basically forcibly retired Alan Bowman today. He got benched for Garrett Rangel, and Rangel did not do a whole lot to keep the job. Ollie Gordon looks like he's running like an old man again. He had one 18-yard carry, he had one 7-yard carry, and then he had 17 total on his other 9. Oklahoma State, like, this was their first loss, but they have not been that good. And they certainly didn't look that good today. And I just don't think that's a very good football team.
I'm just not willing to write off a Gundy team because we've seen him like lose games early in the season before and then all of a sudden just play amazing. But if Utah, like, shoot, you get Utah, they like next week they get what? I don't know who they have next week. Doesn't Kansas State go to Oklahoma State? Like they could have
other way. It's Oklahoma State goes to Kansas State. Yeah,
they could have a pretty decent lead in the Big 12, and kind of lock up not lock up the title game, but have a pretty nice lead on the title game in short order if things break a certain way. Like that's a really important win if you look at Utah's schedule in totality.
After you bench Alan Bowman, does he show up to your speech at the retirement home, or does he stay in his room?
Well, he had to come back. Like he played the rest of the game after they benched him for
Rangel.
Yeah.
I did not think that Oklahoma State looked great. I think that Utah knew very early on, based on the way that it was able to play, that they didn't have to do a lot, and they just sat on them. And that's what Utah does. They just sit on you. They're just a big bully, an older cousin. They just sit on you.
And listen, it wasn't pretty, but credit to Isaac Wilson. Freshman coming in, road game there. 207 yards passing, 41 rushing, but mostly he did have the 2 turnovers, but he mostly just did his best to stay the hell out the way, which was his job today.
He had
I thought Singer and Parks were really good. Like they needed those receivers to step up quite a bit.
Yeah, Micah Bernard was good. Keithy was good. Just that they're a good football team, man. Like when they have a healthy Cam Rising, they're a really good team. But even without him, they're still good.
Yeah.
Did you see? Did y'all happen to see Singer's like David Tyree?
Yes.
That did not. It was like ruled incomplete, but it was the old on like old college football Twitter. We used to have the thing. It was like There should be a rule that if it was cool, then it stands. When he catches it on his head, but then happens to hit the ground, so they call it incomplete. I was like, no, that was cool. It should stand. Great job, Dorian Singer. No, I thought that Utah did a fantastic job. And in terms of the top 25 implications, I don't think Oklahoma State is going to drop out. But I will say that on my own personal opinion of Oklahoma State, I am selling some stock in the short term. I understand your caution, Bud, just based on the Mike Gundy history. But this is a group that, like Virginia Tech, brought back a ton of experience, and they are ducking the traditional approach of returning experience equals success, because they're bringing the same guys back and they are not having the same results.
That's fair. I mean, I would drop them out.
All right, now it's finally time. Tom. Because you know who's dropping out of the top 25?
Northern Illinois.
I do.
Yes, Northern Illinois is dropping out of the top 25. But there was also a team that lost at home. They were in the top 25. They had a lot of buzz. But, buddy, you know what they didn't have? They didn't have answers for Luke Altmaier. They didn't have answers for a big man touchdown. Because while some of us just were out here just taking Illinois, with the points, I think it's going to be like a low-scoring game. I think Illinois will fight in it. No. Only one person on this podcast had the cojones to say, nah, this is going down straight up. The people want to know, how are we feeling for the Fighting Illini?
Good. We feel good. My opinion of the team didn't really change based on that. I think this is a better football team than we thought they were going to be going into the season. And I thought Nebraska, I was mentioning it the last few weeks. Dylan Raiola's looked very good, but you look at a lot of the underlying metrics, this team had some problems coming. It was not a perfect football team. So I felt like going into the week, like the hype surrounding Nebraska, a team that has continuously lost these games for like a decade now, that everybody was so sure they were going to win this game. I was like, I don't know. And that kind of went how I thought it was going to go. I didn't think either side was going to blow the other one out. I thought it was going to be a close game. I thought it was going to come down to the fourth quarter. It was a little higher scoring than I thought. But like, Dylan Raiola is very good. He's a freshman, but he doesn't do stupid freshman stuff. And he missed that one throw that if he makes the connection on the wide open guy on the third down, they score a touchdown and they probably win the game. Instead, they don't. They miss the field goal. Illinois marches down, ties it, forces overtime, and there we go. But Raiola's good. That defensive line wore down as the game went on, and that could just be a depth issue. It was a hot night in Lincoln, too. Like, I think shortly before kickoff, I know our 24/7 Sports Illini Inquired guy, Jeremy Warner, was there. He said it was 98 degrees, like about an hour and a half before kickoff. It was a hot night. So that it's not like Illinois was able to rotate guys in. Their offensive line played well. They also have 4 running backs that they're happy to rely on, which I think helps wear down opposing defensive lines as the game goes on. And then Luke Altmaier, as you mentioned, just kind of deserves some credit because Illinois has a couple very good receivers, I think, in Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant, guys who don't really get a lot of national recognition, but Pat Bryant was very good last year. Zachary Franklin was very good a couple years ago when he was with UTSA. And they're 2 of the better receivers that I remember the Illini having in quite a while. But Luke Altmaier is just like last year, he held on to the ball too long. He just waited on his reads and he panicked. He's not doing that this year. He's more comfortable in the offense. He's getting the ball out on time. He's getting through his progressions. And then when they're not there, he runs. And I just think that his growth has been such a huge development for this team. And I mean, they don't ask him to do a ton. He was 21 to 27 for 215 yards, but he also threw 4 touchdowns. And they also, credit to Barry Lundy, they let him hang when they go for a huge play on 4th down and a touchdown that they need to get, and they throw a ball to an offensive lineman. Like, that takes some guts, and they pulled it out, and it worked. And I mean, it's just, they're a good, well-coached, smart football team. And that's the other side of this. Nebraska, a lot of the same crap that's haunted them for years, haunted them last night. Stupid penalties, just repeatedly face mask. Like there was the one face mask, the guy had been tackled. He's 40 yards downfield. Why are you reaching down and grabbing at his face? Like you're just tacking on 15 yards. It's just really stupid stuff. So I don't know. It's just, I think that I still think Nebraska's good. I think as long as they have Raiola, they're going to be fine. But I also think Illinois is good, and Luke Altmaier deserves more credit than he gets.
I thought Altmaier did a nice job getting the ball out quickly. Illinois offensive line played pretty well for me. And you always kind of wonder, like, could you expose the back end of Nebraska's defense without Tommy Hill? Because he went down at some point in that game and was in street clothes. And as far as I could tell, like, obviously didn't return. She was in street clothes. But if you could hold up for long enough, are there opportunities there against them? And I do think that Illinois showed that there are. Now, I don't know how many other teams on Nebraska's schedule can block them consistently, but Illinois handled that defensive front pretty well. The other thing that happened there, so they lost their left tackle to start the year, preseason, I think?
I think so.
And then Corcoran went down. And so, like we talked about for a lot of these teams, we talked about my Knowles. If you're playing like OT4, OT5, most likely that guy's not any good. And that was a trouble spot for Nebraska. And you really saw Illinois, they really got after the passer pretty well, I thought, once that happened. That's not saying they weren't doing it before, but also like Illinois held up well enough in the run game. Nebraska, like defensive run game. Nebraska hit some explosive runs, but Nebraska was not consistently staying ahead of the chains with the run. And I thought that was important. Like Illinois kind of sold out for some tackles for loss, and on the drives that they won, they got them behind the chains, which was huge. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that's how they're going to play it. Nebraska's going to crack a couple explosive runs, but Illinois is also going to get some TFLs. And that was an effective strategy. I thought, look, both are good coaches, but I thought Bielema was a little better with the chalk on the day and did a nice job.
I also think it's like the first time Dylan Raiola really had to deal with like pressure.
Yes, people around him. Totally.
Hey, so you mentioned Jeremy Warner earlier. He does a very good job. He had my favorite clip of the game. Like, doesn't matter whether it was the Fox broadcast or a fan video or a reporter video, because he's standing in the corner of the field, and he catches defensive coordinator Aaron Henry with kind of like a big hug with Illinois' athletic director. And Henry's about to walk into the tunnel, and you hear this big bellowing voice, Aaron! Aaron! And that's Brett Bielema hollering to his defensive coordinator. And Jeremy's got the video, look him up on Twitter right now. I think it's like Jay Werner 24/7, right? Yeah. And like Bielema gives him a huge hug and holds it there for a little bit. And that was some like, buddy, like you just won this game for us. Like we worked so hard game planning to stop this incredibly talented quarterback. And what you like, there was so much emotion there. And you like that's Bielema, that's the staff, it's everything else. And then if you keep watching the video, Henry goes into the tunnel and Bielema goes over to the Illinois fan section, gives them the ILL-INI chant back and forth. I mean, it's the vibes are really good right now. So I'm enjoying watching along from the sidelines.
And it was a really tough week for Aaron Henry, personal life. He lost his sister last week. So
oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, for him to be going through all that, and then it's still tough. Like you win the game and you still have to go back to your life and dealing with all that kind of stuff. But I know for him that was a very important, just a win for him.
That's awesome. I'm happy for him. He's a good coach. That was one thing I was talking about with our colleague Damian Harris in studio. Like we were like, call time was 8 a.m. this morning for 9 to 12 show. I'm up till 12:30 texting Tom about this awesome Illinois win. And then all of a sudden at 8 a.m. walking in, that was one thing Damian and I were saying, like first thing this morning was like, man, like Aaron Henry coached his ass off in this game. And so I didn't know that other part on the personal side.
He's on a bit of a revenge tour.